Hook, what would you do if the dream home you poured your savings and your heart into a broken bar was being torn apart right before your eyes? I thought I was starting a new life when I bought that old lake mansion. Turns out, I was about to uncover a secret buried beneath years of silence, lies, and heartbreak. Stay with me till the end because what happened after the demolition changed everything. The day I first saw the mansion, it looked like something out of a forgotten fairy tale. Mist rolled off the lake in thick curls, wrapping around the broken columns like ghostly fingers. The roof sagged, vines crawled up the stone walls, and shattered glass winked in the sunlight. But where others saw ruin, I saw promise. I saw a second chance. After my mother passed away, I felt like the world had stopped spinning. I quit my job, sold the tiny apartment we once shared, and packed up the few things I had left. That's when I stumbled across a real estate listing that seemed too good to be true. Historic lakefront mansion sold as is. Must be moved quickly. I remember staring at the photos late into the night of the grand staircase draped in dust, the huge bay windows overlooking still water, the overgrown garden that once must have been alive with laughter and light. Something about it called to me, like the house itself was asking for help. I clicked buy before I even realized what I was doing. When I arrived a week later, the air was crisp, carrying that earthy scent only lakeside air has. I stood there on the gravel driveway, staring up at the faded blue shutters and cracked doors. My heart was pounding, and not with fear, but with possibility. I could almost hear my mom's voice, gentle and encouraging. You always loved fixing broken things. The first few days were exhausting but rewarding. I cleaned the cobwebs out of the entry hall, swept years of dust off the marble floors, and patched the leaks that dripped through the ceiling when I trained. Every nail I hammered, every window I fixed, it was like the house was breathing again. And in some strange way, so was I. Neighbors would drive by slowly, watching me work. Some smiled, others frowned, a few whispered behind their hands. One woman, Mrs. Dalton, stopped her car and rolled down her window one afternoon. "You know that place is under the HOA's control, right?" she said, her tone sharp but not unkind. I frowned. "The homeowners association? I thought this was private property." She sighed. "That mansion's been in dispute for years. You might want to check before you sink too much into it." Her words lingered long after she drove away. Still, I didn't let them stop me. The place needed love, and I needed something to pour my love into. I spent nights on the floor, eating instant noodles under a single lamp, sketching plans for the new kitchen, new decks, and maybe a dock that reached into the lake. One morning, as the sun came up golden over the water, I felt peace for the first time in years. Birds called through the mist, and the reflection of the mansion rippled across the lake like a watercolor painting. I thought, this is it. This is where I'll start over. But peace didn't last long. It was a Friday when I returned from town with paint supplies and noticed something wrong. The sound of engines, the thud of metal, voices shouting. As I turned the bend in the road, my heart stopped. Half a dozen men in hard hats were tearing down the front porch. Bulldozers were parked on the lawn, and a sign read, "HOA authorized demolition, a unsafe structure." I dropped the paint cans and ran forward, shouting for them to stop. My voice broke, raw and desperate, but they didn't even look at me. A man in a suit, a clean, confident, cold, turned toward me and simply said, "You don't belong here. This property isn't yours anymore." My world tilted, my hands shook. Somewhere deep inside the mansion, I could almost hear my mother's voice again, a soft, steady, reminding me to fight for what matters. But as the first wall came crashing down, I realized this wasn't just about a house. It was about truth, and I had no idea how deep that truth went. I don't remember running. I just remember the sound of the crunch of glass under my boots, the heavy thud of wood breaking, the echo of memories collapsing with every swing of a hammer. My voice cracked as I screamed for them to stop. But to the workers, I was just noise in the background of another job. I pushed through the crowd until I reached the man in the suit, the one who'd told me I didn't belong. His name, as I later learned, was Richard Hale, the president of the local home. His face was blank, polished like the lake on a windless day. "You can't do this," I shouted, my chest burning. "I own this property. I have the deed, the title, everything." He gave a dry chuckle. "You had it. The HOA repossessed the land after years of unpaid fees and violations. This structure is condemned. You're trespassing." My mind spun. "That's impossible. I bought it legally through the county site." Richard turned, motioning for the bulldozer operator to continue. The engine roared to life, drowning my words in its fury. I stumbled back, helpless, as another piece of the porch crashed to the ground. The air filled with dust, wood splinters, and disbelief. That night, I sat in my car across the street, watching the mansion under the moonlight. Half of it was gone, yet just rubble and shadows now. I held the crumpled deed in my hands, my fingers tracing my mother's old ring on my thumb, the one she'd given me before she died. She used to say, "Some things are worth fighting for, even when no one else sees their value." I decided I wasn't walking away. Not from that house. Not from her memory. The next morning, I went straight to the county clerk's office. The woman behind the desk was kind but cautious. After a few minutes of searching, she looked up, eyes wide. "You were scammed," she said softly. "The listing you bought from it wasn't official. The property was under HOA dispute for over a decade. There was an old will attached to it, a broken bar, and someone's been trying to bury it." "Whose will?" I asked, my heart pounding. She hesitated, then pulled up a faded document. "Margaret Ellison," she said. My breath caught. That was my mother's maiden name. Over the next week, I dug deeper. I searched records, talked to locals, even visited the Historical Society. What I uncovered left me shaking. My great-grandfather had built that mansion. It had been in my family for generations, but after his death, the property was tied up in legal battles and eventually seized by the HOA under questionable terms. My mother had tried to reclaim it years ago before her illness. She never told me. Suddenly, everything made sense. The pull I'd felt toward the mansion, the way it felt familiar. It was more than a home. It was a legacy. Armed with proof, I returned to confront Richard. I met him at the construction site, where the mansion's remains still lay in piles of dust and timber. He looked irritated, like I was a problem that refused to go away. "You again," he sighed. "I told you, this is over." I placed a folder of documents in his hands, copies of the will, ownership lineage, and correspondence between the county and the HOA. "No," I said firmly. "It's just beginning. You took down my family's home without authorization, and you're going to rebuild it." He scoffed, flipping through the pages. "You think you can fight us? We've been managing this neighborhood for decades." "I don't want to fight you," I said quietly, though my voice trembled. "I just want the Trada and my family's name cleared." For a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Then he handed the papers back and walked away without a word. It took months of meetings, court hearings, sleepless nights, but in the end, the truth stood taller than the ruins. The HOA was forced to admit fault for unauthorized demolition and fraudulent seizure. The court awarded me restoration rights, along with partial funding from their settlement. The day I returned to the lake, construction had already begun, not the cold tearing of machines, but careful hands rebuilding, sanding, painting. The house was coming alive again. I stood by the water's edge, watching the reflection shimmer. A gentle breeze rippled through the lake, carrying the scent of fresh wood and paint. And for the first time since my mother's death, I didn't feel lost. I ran my fingers over the carved initials in one of the surviving beams. Emmy, my great-grandfather's mark, my legacy. The mansion was never just about bricks and walls. It was about belonging, about finding strength when everything seemed to crumble. When the final piece was restored, I opened its doors to the community. Inside, sunlight flooded through the tall windows, dancing on the restored floors. The townspeople came, curious, hesitant, but smiling. Even Richard showed up, quieter, older somehow. As I gave a small speech, my voice broke but didn't falter. "This house isn't just mine," I said. "It's a reminder that even when we're broken, even when people try to tear down what we love, if we hold on, rebuild, and believe, we can rise stronger than before." The crowd clapped softly. Some wiped tears, and as the evening sun dipped into the lake, painting the world gold, I finally understood what my mother meant. Some things are worth fighting for, and sometimes, the fight itself becomes the home you were searching for all along.